You're with BBC News. Now, former US President Donald Trump is expected to fly into Manhattan later today to face charges over hush money payments to a former porn star. CBS correspondent Jared Hill spoke to us from outside Manhattan Criminal Court, where Mr. Trump is expected to undergo processing, as it's known, on Tuesday.
This will be a historic week here because former President Trump is now the first former president of the United States to be facing criminal charges. What we're expecting again is for today, the former president to fly into New York from his home in Florida, and then he will be coming here to the courthouse in Manhattan on Tuesday. This is where he will be fingerprinted. There will likely be a mugshot, in essence, of the former president. We're not expecting handcuffs in this situation because of the security concerns. He'll be with Secret Service, though, and then there will be this arraignment where we will learn at that point what exactly he is being charged for. Again, you mentioned that this is centered around this hush money payment, but the question here is whether there was an illegal falsification of business documents. There are some sources telling CBS News that this could potentially be at least one felony count in relation to that. What else we might see, we'll have to wait. Back to you.
Yes, as you said, we don't yet have the details of what these charges will be. Mr. Trump's lawyer, though, he says Mr. Trump, the former president, is gearing up for a fight. This could be a bitter dispute.
Yeah, that's right. So the lawyer for former President Trump says that they're gearing up for a fight here. They're also saying that they potentially might try and get this case thrown out based on an argument that this should be a federal case and not a state case. Again, we'll have to see what a judge ends up deciding when all of that comes into play here. But this could be both a legal battle for the former president as well as a political one because, again, remember, he is running for president in 2024. And we've already learned that there is another Republican, a former governor of a state here in the United States, that is now throwing their name in the hat for that 2024 race, also saying former President Trump should drop out of the race because of this indictment, because of these charges, saying essentially that this is all too much of a sideshow for the country.
Jared Hill speaking to me a little earlier. Well, I also spoke to Angelia Wilson, who's a professor at the University of Manchester. She specialises in American politics, and she explained the significance of this indictment.
It is an unprecedented week. It is the first time a president has been facing such criminal charges. I think there are two things to look for. There's the immediate reaction, which is going to be, I understand, on Tuesday after he's charged, he will fly back to Mar-a-Lago and hold a rally. And so there will be the immediate aftermath, both possibly in New York and definitely at Mar-a-Lago, with the potential for violence, or certainly the violent language and plans for violence, certainly if he's going to be convicted of these charges. On the other hand, it's about the long-term implications. And for Trump, this is in many ways a gift. He wants to keep his name in front of the public. His supporters are going to continue to support him. They're not going anywhere. There's a recent survey by the Public Religion Research Institute that has said Christian right voters, who are about 60-70% of the Republican Party, Christian right voters believe that a politician can behave ethically in office and have all sorts of personal transgressions. In 2011, only 30% of those Christian right voters thought that would be the case. By 2016-17, we now have 72% of those that think that. So his supporters are not going anywhere. In fact, they're going to be emboldened by this.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about that because President Trump, of course, denies any wrongdoing and using this to mobilise his supporters. One would expect we will see much more of this as the week goes on. Yes,
and Trump's definition of wrongdoing is fairly fluid. I think we can all agree. So what he thinks is wrongdoing and what his supporters think is wrongdoing are very different than what maybe much of the American population thinks is wrongdoing. This is a minor charge. There are other charges that are expected to come from election interference in Georgia, perhaps in terms of incitement to violence on the January the 6th. So this is the first charge to come, a group of charges to come down. It's not going to be the last. And there are some that are questioning why we start with this kind of more minor charge, but it is something that is going to continue to roll and roll between now and the elections in 2024. And Trump is not going to be far from the headlines. So, today, the next 48 hours will be an interesting and historical moment, but there's going to be plenty of those between now and the election of 2024.
Angelia Wilson speaking to me a little earlier.